Greetings all, and if you were with us for episode 2, you'll recognise Tolly, my glamorous assistant, and clearly the brains in this operation. He's very happy with the work we've done so far. He made sure that all my work dried nice and carefully whilst we were away. So now we are back for the final layer. It's the final layer. I promise that is the last time you will hear me sing. So we're back to this process of working on the finer details and going round and around, not with my tool, but with the block itself. This is the finest detail tool that I have. It's a teeny weeny little V-gouge. I can't remember exactly what this is, maybe 1 mil or 1.5 mil, I can't remember. But this is the kind of detail that I really take perverse pleasure in doing. I realise some people, this is the kind of stuff that drives them absolutely potty, but I rather enjoy going around all these fine details, just speeding things up a little bit because you get the idea. You don't need to see me do this in real time all the time. The one issue I do have with this finest gouge is on this very soft material. It's lovely for just carving out guidelines and working on only the finest details, but it can very easily just dig right into the surface like a knife through butter, and it can get a little bit cumbersome and messy. So I've just got my much larger V-gouge at the ready to go in and clear out all the spaces in between these finer lines, as we can see here. I'm just sewing it right back down here so we can appreciate the intricacies of this kind of work. So satisfying. But you can see there how this very sharp, very fine tool with this very soft and pliable surface creates lots of really tricksy little pieces of swarf that don't always come away as cleanly as I would like. So I'm just going in with a larger tool now to clear out some of the bigger spaces. I apologise again for my hair making unwelcome appearances here and there in these videos. I do try not to lean into the camera, but the finer the detail gets, the more I find myself leaning closer and closer to my block. I don't even realise that I'm doing it. Sorry. You can see there is still a lot of colour left on the block after the last layer was printed. I have been washing this in between each press. It's all water soluble inks that I've been using, so I can just wash it in the kitchen sink. And obviously I've been sharpening my tools in between each carve, which I have shown you in the previous video. So if you haven't seen that, please do go through and watch. I think it was episode 2 where we were printing the first layer and the first part of the second layer where we showed that. Yeah, I figure you guys don't need to see me drying things and cleaning things and attending to tool care every single time I do it, because we would be here forever. As much as I do edit out a fair chunk of footage, and a lot of videos don't even really make it onto the timeline, I have to say, and I speed things up as much as I can. I think it's important to try and keep as much of this activity as possible, because it's useful in the first instance. It actually shows the process, even if we don't have to see every individual detail of it. But also it just hammers home how time consuming this pursuit is. It's a wonderful art form, doing linocut printing. I'm absolutely addicted to it. I love that it's halfway between drawing and sculpture to me. Like everything I'm doing here, working into the details of the pine cone, this is what I've been longing to do throughout this whole process. This is the fun part for me. Especially because I'm a digital artist, and my day job, really since I graduated back in the dark ages, has been so desk bound and screen bound. And I love digital technology and digital art in their own right. They've been good to me in various ways, but nothing compares to the satisfaction that I get from working on something like this. Taking a break, hair getting in the way, just speeding things up as much as possible here, because you get the idea. Oh god, the worst of it is my hair looks like a bird's nest, and I'm hoping it's just because it's so close to the camera in these shots. I promise I do take care of my hair. Just cleaning the block a little bit, make sure all those little bits of swarf are out of the way. And now I'm going in with a U-shaped gouge just to clear some of the higher ridges in those berries and some other areas, because those could well pick up some unwanted little bits of ink, and that's the last thing I need in my life right now. Doing the same for the lightest areas on the pine cone too. I have to say, I'm not very happy with the way the colour for the pine cone turned out. I did that classic thing of, I was time pressured. I was doing it by eye. I didn't look at the paint, I think, in different lights. Oh, my glamorous assistant has turned up again to let me know that we've been carving for way too long and I should be paying attention to him. So it's time to take a break. Tolly always shows his best side to the camera. He's a professional. Okay, here it is. The bit we've all been waiting for. Preparing to print the final layer. I have to say, I am full of apprehension as I'm mixing this. I'm just adding a little bit of white paint to the black, because I don't want it to be such a hefty black, and black often straight out of the tube, especially if you've got slightly cheaper materials as I have here. It can look a little bit ghastly, whereas I want this whole image to look warm. It's Christmassy. It's a Christmas image, so I just want a nice sort of charcoaly grey. I'm also going to dilute it just a teensy weensy bit. I don't want this layer to be excessively runny, so I'm just adding a few drops at a time. It almost shouldn't be perceptible really on the camera. I'm just looking for a little bit of extra looseness as I'm working my ink with the palette knife. I just want to make sure that it glides nice and easily across the surface and can fill in all those little raised areas and pock marks that I picked up from the first couple of layers that I printed, when I didn't realise that my block had that uneven textured surface on it. I'm so annoyed. I couldn't see it, I couldn't feel it. The only time it became apparent was when I started printing, and by then, again with time pressures, it was just a bit too late. Again, I always keep some baby wipes handy, and also just some plain old kitchen paper whenever I'm printing, just to make sure I can keep my hands clean. I can clean little areas of my block if they pick up wayward scraps of ink. Just repositioning my camera one, my phone there on the wonky arm that I use. I think I'm dawdling a little bit more than I normally do. I always dawdle a little bit just before printing, just because, yeah, it's like stage fright. You have to commit. Once you're going, you're going. So I just want to make sure I have everything set up on my bench exactly as I want it to be. Say my bench. This is our kitchen table that I have commandeered for these purposes. Again, a nice soft rubber roller. This is a speedball rubber roller. I bought it because I watched lots of YouTube videos where people recommended it, and I do the same. It's a brilliant roller, way better than the cheapo hard ones that I was first working with. So I'm layering up the ink, first going vertically and then horizontally on the block, trying to get even coverage as much as possible. And now we have the moment of truth. I should say this jig, I don't think I've mentioned in the previous videos. This is just obviously a very ramshackle cardboard jig that I made for myself for my previous project, which was a little sleepy dormouse. And whilst it's not perfect, obviously you'll get a little bit of wonky registration. For the most part, it just works really well, which I think is more than can be said for my first tester. As I've said in previous videos, the first print is always going to be a dud, no matter what I do. So I think I just reloaded and went for it again. I'm not too bothered about registration for this. Okay, that is pretty terrible. I can't sugarcoat it. I can't lie to myself or to you. We can all see how terrible that is. However, nil desperandum. Faint heart ne'er won fair maid, so 'tis said. And I'm in too deep now to stop. That being said, I was quite happy with the previous one. That one was okay. So I don't know if it's just that I'm stubborn or that I have given up in some way deep inside, but I believe in this project. I believe in my skills to bring this back from the brink, and I think as I'm printing more, I'm liking the quality of these better and better as we go. So I am going to persevere, speeding things up quite considerably now. Again, just hammering home that if you want to try this at home, kids, you want to carve out a lot of time. It takes time to do the carving, it takes time to do the designing, it takes time to do lots and lots of prints. I think any more than 10 and I really start to tire, if I'm honest. So I have to carve out a decent amount of time when doing this kind of work. Okay, I think we all get the idea, so I'm just going to magically transport us into the future. Ooh, where all this is done, everything's printed, they've all been hung up to dry, and I'm just going to add some extra details because the level of contrast between that dark brown that I ended up using on the pine cone just doesn't have enough contrast with the dark grey background that I printed. Also, a lot of these still have those reticulation issues. So I'm just going in with a silver pen and adding some silvery little details to some high points just to bring them out a little bit more. This is time consuming, but considering the amount of work that I put in so far, I feel it is worth it just to try and add a little extra detail that will just salvage these. You can see that the card is buckling still quite a bit, even though I have been pressing these between big textbooks and coffee table type books, just all the heavy flat things that I can find really in between printing the various layers. But I'm going to press them for a little bit longer under the biggest, heaviest books that I can possibly find once we're done. So hopefully that will fix the problem. And I'm just going through all of these, adding those frosty little touches to the pine cones, to the berries, and particularly to the mistletoe, just to really bring those out and make them more of a feature. Once again though, I think we've got the idea of that, so let's move straight on to the final phase of scoring all of these cards and folding them into their final form. So I did the maths on this several times over to make sure I get it exactly right. I can't remember exactly how many millimeters I need for an A4 piece of paper bang in the middle. I think it was awkward because it was in 1/2 millimeter kinds of measurements. So I actually worked it out and I put it on my phone so that I could refer back to it over and over. I always use a steel metal rule. They're just so much more reliable than wood or plastic ones. So if you can get your hands on one of those, it is one of the single best things that you can do to up your design game. So then I just need to come in with a scalpel once I'm absolutely happy with the placement, and I'm just scoring, not cutting. If you go all the way through the card at this point, then you no longer have a card. We just want to weaken that surface so that a little nudge with the fingers will give you a nice clean spine that doesn't buckle. And there we have it. Just check that stands up. Yes, that works as a card. It's still a little bendy, but we will deal with that. How will we deal with that precisely? Well, with this. This is the biggest and probably coolest book that I have in my possession. I'm a big dinosaur nerd, so I love this book. I'm just placing some paper inside because I don't want it to get damaged, even though these cards should be nice and dry by now after 3 or 4 days of drying time. Yeah, there's still a danger that some of the print could transfer, and I don't want that. So once again, wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. You get the idea. And after all that, we have a full set of 25 handmade linocut Christmas cards. They're not how I had originally envisioned them, certainly. The quality is kind of variable, but for the most part, I'm happy to send these out to people whom I love. They represent an awful lot of hard work and an awful lot of care, and they're just a great way to say, I love you, and Merry Christmas. And a Merry Christmas to you too. Thank you so much for joining me throughout this process. It's been a great pleasure spending time with you. I hope that you found this series of videos enjoyable and informative, and it only remains to say Merry Christmas again from me and from Tolly, the brains in the operation. Night night, and God bless us, every one.